So we have Amy Mebberson of the Disney Princesses. We have Tad Stones, creator of Darkwing Duck and other things. James Silvani, artist on the Darkwing Duck comic, and Aaron Sparrow, writer on the Darkwing Duck comic. Yay, yes, clap for all of them. Amazing guests. Thank you all for being here for the Perky Nerd panel today. Sure. Very excited to have you. Yes, we're kind of Disney crazy here. We have Disney trivia. We have, well, this is Disney. We have some Wonderground artists that are going to be coming this spring, so it's all very exciting.
He's been a Wonderground artist.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah?
2 years? Yeah, oh yeah, when the gallery opened.
Oh, okay.
That was quite a few years ago.
Yeah. When did it open?
Oh, 2012 or something?
Oh, that recent?
Oh, 2011.
See, recent.
2011.
Oh.
2011 or so, yeah.
Yeah, you got that giant banner of your.
I had the giant Merida banner over
Yeah.
the door, yeah. they saw the auction that off at D23.
Oh, really? Do you know what it went for?
I don't know.
That's a good way to gauge your self-worth.
I know. I think they're asking,
Auction, I'm sure
what
they
was your cut?
starting.
No, if you ask what was your cut, then people start to cry.
Oh, no.
Just that quivering lip.
Well, so Darkwing Duck, everyone is a fan, I'm sure. So Tad, tell us about Darkwing Duck. So
What are the origins?
All 6 of them.
oh, is there 6?
In the show.
Oh.
Okay, here. You guys probably know this, and it either eats away at you or not, but I based a lot of the feeling of Darkwing on the Silver Age of comics. And the difference between the Silver Age of comics that I grew up with and current is continuity. And that Superman, his continuity was Lois suspected Clark was Superman. They worked for Perry White, and Jimmy Olsen had a little watch that could call Superman, and Lex Luthor lost all his hair as a teenager, and that's why he hated Superman. And that was
Superman
it. You kept
too.
telling stories. You keep telling these stories over and over and over, and every once in a while you'd get to see issue something. But generally it was individual comics. And then Marvel came and started continuing a continuity. So not even in a multi-part story, but it was just a hint of, oh yeah, he lost his father there, Dad's not going to come back for this story, you know. It's like there was a continuity that crossed all the comics. They combined the world. So Darkwing was done in the Silver Age. So in the show, he has 6 origins, and the fans tend to say, oh no, he went to high school with Megavolt.
Because that's the one they like best.
He did, because he did for that 22 minutes. Yes, he did. You know, and then there's the other episode where he came from another planet, and then there's another. Because the thing I never did with Darkwing is give him an origin because he doesn't have superpowers. It's like Batman's origin, and I've always said it's not like he's sitting there how to fight crime and a duck flies through the window. I shall become a duck. Wait. So it was like when we came to do our, okay, now it's time to do a story to introduce the character, it was about bringing Goslin into his life, bringing Launchpad into his life. It wasn't about how he became this guy who wears a mask.
Right.
So, I mean, it was just a different sensibility. Now people look at it, well, actually much like DuckTales now on TV. It's like there is a tight continuity to that show, and they have stories plotted out many, many seasons.
The one going on right now?
Exactly. They have dropped things in early episodes that will get a payoff, you know, in a season or 2. That's how they think.
Oh,
know?
wow.
It's not about, hey, you know what would be fun to bring back such and such character? It's like, how would we bring that character? How are we going to make him fresh, and how does he fit in with this? And that goes for DuckTales and the whole Disney afternoon.
Right.
So that's the sensibility, and people keep on trying to make Darkwing fit that modern sensibility, and he doesn't. Except for what these guys did.
Well, we actually, and it's funny, we actually pitched a book that we pitched a book for you. That was like how much we wanted you to write something. Because we said, what if we did like a 4-issue limited series, and it was called The One True Origin of Darkwing Duck. And in each issue, Tad wrote a different origin. And then, like, each issue was self-contained. Yeah, exactly. Each one was different. You know, he wrote 4 new origins that were all different. And then at the end, you would just have like Goslin going, so what, you know, Dad, how did you decide to become Darkwing Duck? And he goes, well, and it just cuts to like the Batman thing where he's sitting there and he's like, there sure is a lot of crime in this city. and then you pan over to the wall and he's like, and I've got all these gas guns and all these hacks. And that's as simple as that.
And Launchpad comes crashing through the window.
But that's not gonna happen. That's just an idea that you have.
Yeah, that was something that we pitched.
What I would do in the last page is he starts to say it, and then basically the page is actually a ripped page, and you see, send away for sea monkeys behind it.
We did that in
can't turn it. That it's
we
just
did that in
there.
issue 6. We did the 2-page spread with the sea monkeys. We had to call them sea simians because someone somewhere still owns the copyright to sea monkeys.
Oh. Oh my God.
Didn't we do like the ant caboose instead of the ant farm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an ant farm. What do we call it? Like originally, we called it the ant kibitz or something.
Yeah, ant kibitz. Yeah.
As we've already seen, the experts are not on this stage.
Yeah. I'm telling you, in a few months, I'll be asking you guys, like, what did we do in that issue? I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, talking about DuckTales and all the things they had planned out, I came across like a whole dissection of what's Webby's board. That's on
Murder
that.
board, yes.
Yeah, I was like, my God.
There's a lot of hints.
There's a lot of Easter eggs.
A lot of Easter eggs. And they bring up that St. Canard is mentioned in the meeting with his accountant. So,
yeah, they mentioned Cape Suzette and Spoonerville too. I think,
yeah,
in that same episode.
yes.
I mean,
You guys are all watching DuckTales?
Yeah.
Best show on TV.
I mean, it's not giving a little peek behind the scenes that early on, the guys doing the DuckTales show all are fans of the Disney Afternoon. And when they went to do DuckTales, they said, we're going back to the source material. Just like if you would do Sherlock Holmes, you don't go to the last Sherlock Holmes show, you go to the source material and decide, I'm going to set it in space, your current day, or whatever. Well, the source material for DuckTales is not DuckTales. It is Donald Duck cartoons, Donald Duck comic strips, certainly Carl Barks, Don Rosa, TV show appearances, and of course DuckTales. That's all fair game to them. And then Frank said, I don't know who brought it up, but they talked about, yeah, it can be, here's the Disney Afternoon, but we're doing DuckTales. And Frank said, how much can I have? And they said, everything, except Chip and Dale.
And Goofy.
Because Chip and Dale, in theory, have a movie in development still.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of like, we don't know what they're doing with that. And that may, all of these things are, if you work in the studios at all, you realize everything like that switches. But, so that Cape Suzette and St. Canard, those things aren't, oh, wouldn't it be fun? We have to name a city. Let's pick a name out of there. It's like, no, in Frank Aragonas's mind, that's a place in that universe. And someday they'll get to one of those places.
Someday? When is that day?
Wednesday.
I've been waiting.
It's one of those things. The problem is they got a million stories, but it is DuckTales. So they could have a great, this is how we would bring back Baloo. But it's like, it's DuckTales. You then have to say, how do we get Scrooge and the gang there? And how would you give Baloo the time to have that storyline? It's that kind of thing. So some will be mentioned, some is just like part of the universe. But that's, that show is ongoing, and that is a cohesive, well thought out things that sooner or later we'll get to stuff. So.
I mean, that's what's been happening a lot, I feel like now, is that everyone has grown up that grew up on all this stuff, and now they're in charge of all the cartoons, which is really cool. Because then they can plant all those Easter eggs and do all that stuff for the fans, which we just like gobble up. So that's really cool. But you guys are fans too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is why I love the comic, because you made it like they're single stories. I mean, you have 2 volumes.
Mhm.
There's 8 stories, right?
Yeah, 2 volumes, and then the Definitively Dangerous edition, which remasters all the work that we did at Boom.
Right.
So 16 issues?
16 issues,
Yeah,
yeah.
16.
And the annual.
Yeah.
Right. So what's great about Darkwing Duck you kind of get like a whole story, which we have like mystery bags here, so that people who don't know where to start or they want to start something new, you get 10 different comics in there, and then you can read it, and then you can go, oh, I like that one, I'm going to go explore that character. But what's fun about Darkwing Duck is that, I mean, people are Darkwing fans, but then they can go pick up one book, and they're satisfied. Well, they go get
Well, we hope they're not.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like a story. Like, so someone could just come out and not know what it is and pick it up and they get a good story.
It's funny, on the DuckTales show, Tad's talking about that cohesive universe, and they're going to do a lot of things that James and I wanted to do in the Darkwing comics, but we weren't able to do because it's like, no, this is the animation's important, comic books, scale it back a bit, boys. But you can see little hints of it, like, when we have the where Launchpad was out of work, and he's holding the Rescue Rangers ship, and he's saying, I can pilot this, and Gadget's on his shoulders going, no, you can. So we had like little hints of that, and the nice thing is, because we gave the comic a continuity, but we still kept it very kind of like fast and loose. So anytime we want to do something goofy, Darkwing's universe is elastic enough, because the show had no continuity, that we can do something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the Definitively Dangerous edition is set a year after the show. We gave it a year gap so that we could tell the story that we wanted to tell. But then in the new series, we make a reference where Dwayne says that one of the events that happened on the show happened 28 days tater, because it's about the zombie potatoes. And I got fans who were going, wait a minute, if the comic is a year after the show, how can this be 28 days after the episode that was part of the show? And I'm like, you're dealing with a property where the character has like 4 or 5 origins. Just go with it. And then like some people were still like really adamant about it. And I said, okay, who's telling the story? It's Dwayne, the creepy weasel. Do you find him to be a reliable source? Like, just go with it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. But we wanted to do that with the Boom stuff. We were locked into these 4-issue arcs because that's how they publish trades. So the orders that we got from them was everything has to be 4 issues, which was cool, but also kind of a bummer, because there's some villains that are never going to be big enough for a 4-issue arc. Like, you're never going to do 4 issues with like Lilliput Goonie. He's just not a big enough threat. So with the new series, we got to do like little single issues that we thought, this will be good, because then kids can grab them and they get a whole story. And there's a thread that runs through to continue, but the main story is, you could pull those pages out and the story is complete. So we really wanted to do that, because we wanted to have like those little 22-minute episode type books in the run. So.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And you're a fan of Darkwing Duck. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like
I'm going to build a new persona. I hate the duck. Give me Turtle. I started with Turtle.
All I
want to finish with Turtle.
All I want to do is bring back Street Sharks.
That's after I get to the Wild West Cowboys at Moo Mesa.
SWAT cats. Sorry.
Oh my! You know what? You're gonna get a message from Janice about that. Don't you dare make fun of SWAT cats.
Actually, the thing that he
I
hates to
gave it
hear
a-
is
you gave it props, yeah.
I was more of a DuckTales fan.
more DuckTales?
I was always a big fan of the Carl Barks comics growing up. Those were my first comics I ever bought. I used to get those from the drugstore, the Gold Key pack of comics that was it was in a plastic wrap, and it had like 4 or 5 different comics in there. And I would always get the ones that say Disney Comics, and they would be the reprints of the Carl Barks comics. And this was in the early 70s where they did this, where you could buy comics in a drugstore or 7-Eleven, and I would just read. I was just ravaging these books. I would read the crap out of them, and then when they made a cartoon of it, it's like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And then watched the entire run of DuckTales, and then was so enamored with that. Then I continued on with Darkwing, and I never really watched the rest of the Disney Afternoon because there was no ducks. But
So you watched a lot of Quack Pack then, because there were ducks.
next question.
And you have worked on the Disney Princess. You're the writer and illustrator of the comics.
Co-writer. Yeah, it was
Co-writer,
me and
okay.
about four other people, good friends of ours who've been working with us on Disney Comics for a long time. Friends Paul Benjamin, Patrick Stork, Georgia Ball, who I've worked on Strawberry Shortcake with for a while, and who else was on it? Yeah, a whole bunch of other people. And I basically script edited pretty much everything. It's just basically because we had to put out this large quantity of little 4-panel comic strips every month. I kind of we needed to get the material to Disney thick and fast, so that because there's always a chance they're going to say no to some of them, or it's like, all right, so we need to make sure we've got enough to make up the issue. So, but yeah, it was pretty much. It was partly because of Pocket Princesses, which I've been doing as a fan comic for like 4 years.
So
I was gonna
you just
say, I don't think it's partly. I don't think I wouldn't
So,
exist without
Pocket Princesses. Who knows about Pocket Princesses?
You're very sorry.
I absolutely love Pocket
Thank you.
Princesses. It's the reason why.
So cute. It's always fun to see on my Facebook feed.
Thank you.
So you just started
basically,
doing that?
even though you're used to merchandising, seeing a bunch of Disney princesses stand together, they are not allowed to appear together in Disney. They can be all on the cover of a box. You open the box, they'd be in separate little things because Jasmine has her world and Cinderella has her world. And as a fan comic, Amy posited the idea of like, no, these classic princesses all live together, you know, in the woods. And it's hilarious. And to me, the genius of it is she has distilled each princess into one significant trait. I mean, they're full characters, but, you know, oh, she's going to be that way, and she's going to be obsessed with shoes, or she's going to be, you know, what, and it's all from the character, but I mean, that you saw in the movies, but it's pushed and it's extreme. And to me, it's hilarious, basically. So Google and check out. It's all on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like the real world with princesses,
Yeah.
right?
It's kind of a dash of sort of Big Brother-y kind of thing. It
Oh,
started
Big
out of them
Brother?
just hanging out together, basically. And then
Yeah.
I guess they could all kind of live together. It's like a behind-the-scenes thing. They clock out at the end of the day and they just go home. I mean, they still have their boyfriends and princes and several
right.
sidekicks, so they kind of each still have their worlds, but it's like at the end of the day, they all go home to this giant, crazy house, and I have no. People ask me, "What does the house look like?" I don't know.
But it's like,
Hasbro, I think, tried. They made like a little playset house
Oh.
in the Little Kingdom line, which I've done design for, and the elements of the house is made of each bit of a princess. You know, so you've got the bit that looks like an apple, you've got a bit that looks like Rapunzel's tower, you've got one of Jasmine's turrets. It's like it's kind of the closest the official merchandisers can get.
But is that real merchandise?
The Hasbro Little Kingdom? Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't have a little
It's-
girl. I
yeah,
have a
the-
little boy,
yeah.
so.
They're the
Like-
little 3-inch. Sort of
Every time I come in, he
2.5-inch
offers me
action figures, about
Cheerios.
that big. And the idea is you can swap the dress ornaments around and things like that. They're just little action
Oh.
figures. But the idea is with the toy line, the child can play and interact with characters and have them all play together, but you won't actually see them all together on the covers, on the packaging.
Don't even make eye contact.
contact. No.
but I mean,
All of
in
the
that way,
rules.
Pocket Princess is like a lot in common with Darkwing in that Amy goes for what's funny. So it's like, yes, they all went out and saw The Force Awakens together. You know? And they cosplayed and they got excited about different things. It's like, why? Because it was funny.
Right.
It's funny to see these personalities interact and all of that. So, well worth
Because
checking
I mean,
out.
because it's side. I mean, that's the thing when like I said, Pocket Princess has been going for about 4 years, and then Adam Fortier, who was one of the guys who sort of got Joe Books off the ground, he's a friend of ours. He sort of said, "Look, I love Pocket Princesses. I want to pitch that to Disney." I'm like, "Sweet, let's get to work." And so I did an 8-page pitch, like a sequential story with Pocket, not comic strip, not the single ones. It was actually a full little 8-page story.
Oh.
Which the world has never seen, and that purely for pitch reasons. So, so he took it, he showed it to Disney, and their branding people and licensing people, they said, "Look, it's funny, we love it, but branding, I'm never going to say yes to this," because they interact, and that is branding rule number 1 with princesses: they cannot interact.
And
Because I get why.
Because
is
it's
it
why?
just because they
Why?
sell more toys if you have to buy separate?
No, I
it's
think it's just that
confusing?
they want to keep. They each one has their own mythology. And if you look at what Disney are doing now with princesses called the Dream Big Princess campaign, you'll notice they're all kept very individual. You don't see so much anymore of the princesses in big swishy dresses in a big crowd on a t-shirt. You see more individual princesses now, and it's because they want to push each girl's virtue and her positive enforcing thing. So, you know, Pocahontas is the tree hugger, and you know, Cindy is about kindness, and Rapunzel is about creativity, and Ariel is curiosity and exploring the world. So I can see why they do that. But if something like, you've probably all heard of Vader and Son, or Vader's Little Princess. That started out as a fan comic. He did that as a fan comic, and George Lucas saw it and he went, "That's awesome. Have our guys publish that, please." And it was straight on the New York bestseller list.
Oh, wow.
But that was before Disney bought Lucasfilm, and after that, Disney started to really tighten the screws on the branding.
But I mean, stuff like that.
Those books are still out there. They're still in print. But
stuff like that. Again,
Something like
I always quote Lily Tomlin, who once said, "Nobody calls it show art." It's you could get executives changing in the future, and suddenly, why aren't we doing this?
Right.
And people say, well, we need them in separate worlds. Wouldn't we sell a lot of books if we did this? Well, yeah. And suddenly, and things can change in the course of a meeting. So who knows?
Well, I just don't understand.
I just think it can be a separate thing. It could be a TV show.
Right, but like it's not like me as a person who likes princesses. It's not like I'm like, whoa, my mind is blown. They can like what happened to all of the history? Like that doesn't just go away. Like I understand like in this world that they, like in Pocket Princess world, they can all talk to each other, but that doesn't mean that they don't also have this world.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
in
I mean?
early Disney comics, Three Little Pigs would show up
yeah,
in a story with, Mickey and Donald and stuff like that. It was just, it never occurred to them that there were any restrictions. It actually comes as you get bigger and bigger, and somebody says, well, you have to establish rules. And a lot of times it's just, the people who were in the office that day and in charge, set certain rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, our rules on
Someday it can change.
Our rules on the comics were different for our Joe Books run than they were for our
For
Boom
the
run.
boom, yeah.
Yeah, we had different people in charge, and so it comes with a whole different set of rules. Like James used to be able to put in all kinds of Disney Easter eggs into the book.
I know, it's so great.
And so like if you read the Definitively Dangerous edition, you'll see there's a lot of there's a lot of that in there. Like what are some of the ones some of the more
What are the ones I didn't do?
Magica has a magical item that has Jack Skellington and Oogie Boogie on it. There's all kinds of just little things like that we were able to get away with. And then,
Somebody had a gun that were turning people into real dogs and cats, and I would do the laser blast came out of the eyes and it turned a bunch of ducks into the cast of Oliver and Company.
Yeah. So and the pet store.
I was just going to say, in the short story I wrote, in the pet store, every character in a cage is
from some other
somebody
Disney.
else.
Yeah, like Flotsam and Jetsam are in the tank. And
like Caw, and I think I even put Gurgi in there.
Yeah.
What about the founder joke?
the founder. Yeah, the Quackworks founder.
Which one?
Darkwing's looking up the founder in the database and flounder.
And it shows flounder on it.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That was in that was in the second issue, and it was at that point I thought, oh, interesting. We can get away with stuff. And
Yeah, it's like we wrote one joke, and James was like, "Wait, we can do this?"
that and the gadget.
Yeah, the gadget. Yeah, the gadget was also in the second issue. We had both of those in. Or was Gadget in 3? I think Gadget's in 3. So we had those two gags, and then that let James know that he could go crazy.
I think at that point is when then Quackerjack blew up the toy factory, and I filled the entire shelves with the whole cast of Toy Story.
And you know what? And kind of, and a lot of Star Wars toys, which turned out being kind of a little bit of
foreshadowing.
precognition on your part that one day these would all be.
Genius.
Yeah, so how does that work? Like,
his brain.
No. Tell us about that. So you have the idea, and then you can just run wild, and then it depends on what they edit out, or what is tell us about the process of making the comic.
Okay,
For people who are interested in writing their own comics or.
Well, anytime you're dealing with a licensed property, you are beholden to the licensing approval people, and depending on, there's a variety of factors, depending on how new they are, what the rules are that they're currently under, kind of determines what you can get away with. So but nobody tells you that up front. Like you never get sent like a guide that says, here are all the hard and fast rules. So you just pitch things and you hope that it goes through. And then sometimes they're like, in the pitch, they go, yeah. And then once it's on the page, they go, whoa, wait a minute, what did you do here? Oh, this is not what we expected. Like you went like a little too far, so scale it back. We had a joke in a Cars comic that we did at Boom that they actually approved, but then internally at Boom, my boss told me no, which was we had Mac, who's played by John Ratzenberger. He gets sucked up into a UFO. And the lights come on, and he's in tanks, and in every other tank is every other character John Ratzenberger has ever played in a Pixar movie. And Disney said yes, and then my editor-in-chief at Boom said, no, make them all Cars. Make them all the Cars versions of the characters that he played. So it ended up not being as fun, but it's just like that's one of those kind of compromises.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Anti-humor.
Pixar was like, yes. Because it all turns out to be a dream sequence. You don't know if Mac really got abducted or if it was just, we hint that he did, but it could have just been a dream. It's left to your imagination.
It's funny how the branding goes though, as far as the different runs. Like with Boom, when we were doing stuff, we got away with everything. Mm-hmm. When it got to the Joe Books run, the main edict we got that I never understood is we were never allowed to put Launchpad on the cover because they didn't want the brand confusion with the new DuckTales show. They say, that's it. We don't want people thinking this is, associated or.
Meanwhile, across town, there's like 1 billion Spider-Man books.
Yeah. Well, there was
of different ages and sexes and races, and it's like doesn't seem to bother anybody.
It was funny too when we met
Robin's
Frank.
too.
When we met Frank Angonis, who's the producer on DuckTales, that Tad's talked about, and we told him that story. He goes, that didn't come from us. You could have put Launchpad. He goes, you want me to send him an email? I'll send him an email saying it's fine with us that they use Launchpad on the cover. Like there's. But Frank is like, he's a comic guy too, so he understands that, if you go in and you look at IDW's like turtle books, it's like here's the Eastman and Laird turtles, and then right next to it is the new Nickelodeon turtles. You can have different continuities and different books for different characters. These characters are evergreen.
Process-wise, the second run after you definitively Dangerous edition was done, what's your process? Starting with idea, story. Do you come to James with ideas? You sit down, what do you want to do?
I come to you first, and then you tell me, no, do it again. So like I went to like on the new series, I went to Tad and I said, this is kind of what we're thinking. And Tad said, that's fine, but you should always open with big action. And that kind of like, once he told me that, and I processed that, I was like, yeah, if we open with like this big action scene, that'll actually let me set up the story that I want to tell a lot better. So we opened with the big, it was funny too, because James said, hey, I got a lot to do this month, so kind of take it easy on me, okay? and I said, okay, yeah, I will. Scene 1, the entire city of St. Canard is assembled for an electrical parade. And I turned it to James, and he's like, oh, what are you doing to me? And he like,
I think you're picking different language than I used.
I'm trying to keep it, PG.
James does this to himself, though, because I remember there was a cover where all these Eggmen were on the cover, and I said, you put some giant Eggmen in, and put one in the front row, you don't have to draw all the guys behind him. So he said, brilliant, he put in all these giant Eggmen in the back row.
So he still had to draw
he had to draw
40 Eggmen in front of them.
What are we doing, a Cartoon Network show here? No, we're doing a Disney show.
That would have been the first thing we would have done. Say, can we put the big guy in the front?
Yeah, so James punishes himself a lot. And he made me promise, he goes, okay, I will draw this, but you have to give me an issue later where they're just out in the woods and all I have to draw is like some trees. No more city, no more, no crowds, et cetera, et cetera. And I go, all right. And then that finally came in issue 7 and 8 where James got to draw like 2 pages of forest?
With plants.
Yeah, and then the rest of it takes place at a factory with, millions of potato zombies. And
I'm still waiting for my snowstorm issue.
Stuck on a raft in the ocean.
Process.
Okay, so process. So generally, we bounce some ideas past Tad, and Tad is always like just a wealth of information, and I've learned so much about story and character and just from having dinners with him and picking his brain. And
the fact that I have no memory from time to time is for him too.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
I'm the guy who says, You're doing what? Oh, that thing that you drew on the napkin.
It's Dinner with Tad is very much
You're
like
putting
me
in a tie?
in that Captain Kirk sketch. It's like me going, Tad, remember in the episode when you did this? And Tad's like, what? Get a life. No, it was 25 years ago. What? I didn't memorize all that. And I have it like all stored. So I'll sit down and I'll have a discussion with James about what we want to do. And then usually we bounce some ideas past Tad and he gives us some feedback. And then I'll sit down and I'll write the script. James will tell me like, I'd really like to draw this and I'd really like to draw that. So if you could put some dinosaurs in it, that'd be great. Which is how we ended up with the plant raptors in issue 2.
I'm asking this because
Oh.
we've never talked about this. Going back, that first thing when you guys are talking together, what kind of input are you having? Are you saying, oh, what if the bad guy
No, I just
was in
put
a
the phone down
submarine?
and let him ramble for a
Play with the dog, yeah.
He comes back and no, okay. For example,
I have time to go to the comic shop. Go say hi to Alika.
one of the
Because
things.
in case you guys don't know, you live in Hawaii.
Yes.
Yes,
Maui.
and you
Poor
are
bastard.
here in LA.
Yeah, I live in. Yeah,
So
I live
you
in
guys
California.
have to do everything over the phone, or do you?
Yeah, we do everything
Skype
on the phone, or sometimes I'll go out to Maui and like I went out to Maui.
yeah.
I went out to Maui for like 2 weeks, and James and I had like this powwow when we were launching the series. So we got to sit down. What about this? What about this? And we got to map out like 3 years worth of stories.
Nice.
So for an example, like the way that James and I collaborate is issue 9 had it seen print, and it may yet through another publisher. It fingers crossed. Issue 9 picked up our Quackerjack story. So James goes, hey, you know what'd be fun is you remember all the like whenever you'd get like a Batman assortment of toys, and there'd be like Street Luge Batman and Fire Extinguisher Batman. He'd be like a neon red, and it like didn't make any sense for the character. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I want to draw Darkwing and a bunch of like stuff. I want to do like a bunch of Darkwing variations like that. So
That's hence the snowstorm issue where we get Arctic Blast Darkwing.
yeah, so because he's like, because I want to draw this cover with all these like Darkwing, different like stupid Darkwing action figures. And I was like, okay, well that kind of fits perfectly. We'll just add it into where like the opening of the issue is Darkwing getting his first toy line. Like they finally someone's in like, hey, we're gonna do a toy line with you. And James will get to draw like Inferno Darkwing and Capture Claw Darkwing and all the nonsense that. But then we worked into the story, so like it became a bigger part of this. It ended up not being a gag. It ended up working its way through the whole thread of the story. Totally separate from what Quackerjack is doing. This just happens to be what Darkwing is doing at the same time, and then those two things will come together in hopefully like a satisfying way. So, usually he tells me, I want to draw this, and it would be funny if we did this, and more anvils.
So that's the discussion. Then what happens next?
Then I go back and I'll sit down and I'll write out the script, and I'll have all the story, full script, yeah, full script, not Marvel style. Although occasionally there's pages where I'll be lazy and I'll do it Marvel style. Like I'll say, this is like a 2-page fight, so just draw 2 pages of fighting, and then I'll add dialogue after I see what you've drawn. And that works really well because James will come in and he'll do something really exciting, and I'll have.
You'll still cash your check.
Yeah, I still cash a check. He'll do like a really cool sequence, and then I'll just go in and I'll add all the dialogue balloons. And because of how great he is with the expressions and with his layouts and things like that, it'll actually spur me to write probably better dialogue than I would have if I just would have tried to dialogue the scene.
I don't know if anybody that looks at the credits of the comics, but on the current one we list ourselves as, instead of writer and artist, we just say storytellers.
Yeah, because I think it's a collaborative medium. And anybody who tries to tell you, no, I'm responsible for all of this, that's not true.
Of course, years from now, after, when they're going to make the Darkwing movies, they're going to make a whole series of style movies. And I'll be long dead and he'll be doing all the cameos.
Yeah. It's like,
Stan Lee style with the...
After we have our bitter falling out. We only communicate through a thick wall of lawyers.
Okay, so he goes to script, and then
I kick it back to James. James will do all the
Well, you got to
roughs.
send it in for approval.
Oh yeah, we got to send it in for Disney has to be
yeah.
involved.
And then
Yeah.
And then we wait 6 weeks.
So I send in the script, and generally we don't get a lot of notes. We'll just get told things that like where we're breaking rules, and they'll be like, you can't do this, change this. This joke's a little off color.
Put Morgana's top back on.
What? That's when you turn in the roughs, buddy. And then he'll come back and James will rough it all out, and then how does the art process work? 'Cause I know.
I just make it up as I go along.
Yeah, you turn in each. What stages do you have to turn in? I can't remember.
No, I
which
have to
ones.
do tight pencils and then...
no, but
You
literally, getting into do you thumbnail out an issue? Do you
No,
thumbnail a page? Do you?
Yeah, no, I rough it out on paper first. I have to. I think visually that's, I guess, what's good. I'm an artist.
Do you do it as a page, or do you just do, oh, here's a gag?
I
and
get out a
here's
piece of
gag?
copy paper and I mark out 22 pages on one single sheet of paper, and then I lay it out from beginning
Like
to end. So
storyboarding?
yeah, so
Yeah.
but I do it with little stick figure characters.
He sends it to me, and I go, "What is this?" I can't.
Trust me, it's gonna be great.
I was a mantra, just trust me.
Yeah.
It'll look fine.
Yeah, and Amy and I are going like, "What is this?"
Nice.
His roughs are very loose, but he understands them.
Yeah, no, and then I take it to the pencil stage, and then it's sent off for approvals, and then inks from there.
Oh.
So
And then we'd have our
And then
colorist
2
come
months
in.
later, inks. Off you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah, and so then when I get the final inked, when the inks are approved, they're like, this is what the art's going to look like. Then I'll go back through and I'll do a lettering draft of the script. So depending
Wait.
on
I'm sorry, backing up.
okay.
When you say type pencils, are they
Right.
type? Are they type pencils, or is it digital at that point?
I'm doing everything on the computer.
Okay,
So-
including the thumbnails.
Yeah, no,
Other than
thumbnails I do by
thumbnails
hand.
you on paper. Okay.
Thumbnails I do by hand on paper, and then I used to, all the comics that were done in the Definitively Dangerous edition, I did those all by hand, but that's before I got in. Amy introduced me to the Cintiq.
Dragged him kicking and screaming.
Yeah, into
To
the,
what?
into the digital age.
To
Well,
a
I have one of
still
those
Wacom
monitors
Cintiq.
that you draw on directly.
Oh.
It's a Wacom Cintiq, and
Hence no original art pages.
No.
yeah. So for the new run, no, I don't have any original pages, but it's so much easier to make changes and
With Disney, you have to pretty much always be prepared. There will be notes,
yeah.
and it's a lot easier to make adjustments on a digital piece of artwork than it is with a scanned original, because you gotta do some trickery to Photoshop and it never quite looks the same. And yeah,
Yeah. So if there's any aspiring comic artists in the crowd here right now, drawing comics is absolutely 100% a full-time job every month, because especially if you're penciling and inking, because you got to figure 2 pages a day to pencil at the most. I mean, unless you're crazy.
Or Jack Kirby.
amateur.
Yeah.
There's like an issue with that.
Two pages a day to pencil, then send it in for approvals. So then you ink the issue before that was just approved by Disney, because it takes them a couple weeks to get things approved by Disney.
Oh, God.
So you're pretty much 7 days a week every month.
Oh.
So doing comics. So
And
that's-
some companies
that's-
in LA will pay you $75 all the way through colors. Woo!
yeah. So that's why conventions and such are a nice little getaway to break up the monotony.
Yes.
Oh.
You never leave your house, basically.
So, did you have more questions?
Did-
along
did-
that line?
Do we get through
we
the
miss
process?
anything?
I'm just
To the
breaking down her
finishing
questions.
Yeah, okay.
She has
So-
process.
So the inks come back, and then I'll do a lettering draft of the script where I'll look at what James has drawn, because sometimes he'll change panel layouts, because he'll go, yeah, it works better if I do it this way, I can, or I'll have something laid out for 6 panels, and he's like, I can do that in 4. So I'll do a new lettering draft of the script before it goes to DJ or to DC Hopkins for
So are
letters.
you roughing in balloons, or?
No,
Just-
no. I in the pencil stage, I just make sure to
Leave
put a
one.
circle for.
Yeah, I was asking him to do that for a long time. Like, could you just draw them in the pencil stage so that you know that words go there, so you don't go and then Launchpad sending it in, going, hey, because he wants to make more work for himself. He's like, it could be this blank space where the word balloons are going to go, but James is like, but I drew the whole city and every window, because I'm not cheating. And I'd be like, you could just fake it, and he's like, that's cheating. So then it goes off to DJ. He'll do the lettering on the ink stage. At the same time, the pages are at the colorist. And then when the colors come back, he'll just put the letters over the colors and then just do some tweaking to make sure that everything's sized properly. And then we got ourselves a comic book.
And the programs you use?
I use Photoshop for all my artwork. So I tried the manga. I think you turned me on to Manga Studio. but
Yeah.
I just figured it was just easier to do everything in Photoshop instead
Actually,
of learning a new program.
I find that's the most useful thing of that. I don't use it enough to actually get good at it. is actually the lettering stage, which you're not doing.
No,
but
screw
screwy
lettering.
balloons and all that. Yeah. So they send you an Illustrator file and an Adobe Photoshop layer. How do the word balloons get to you?
Oh, we just get a PDF from the editor, like the Jesse posted.
Oh, they put it together. You don't
Yeah,
have
they
to
put it
add
together
that.
because
Okay.
the lettering for all the Disney books has to be done in Illustrator.
Right,
So,
okay.
they do it there, and then we just get like a PDF, and I go through and make sure that everything's in the right place, that the characters are saying, the balloons are pointing to the right people, and make sure it reads well. And then maybe I'll make a few last minute alterations, and then the letterer will shake their fist at me and curse my name. But
And then you have a comic.
and then we have a comic,
And then it comes to me, maybe. And
depending on,
I sell it. Yeah.
depending on whether Diamond fills the order.
Yes.
We had a lot of retailers who would say, like, I reordered Darkwing Duck and they sent me copies of Donald. And I was like, well, that's good for IDW.
Yeah.
But
Well-
Amy does her process in a different,
Yeah, how do you...
because you do everything. You
Yeah.
write, color.
Well, yeah.
Did you do the letters too on
No,
Princess?
I don't do letters. Pocket Princesses, yeah, but that's just a
Let's not
that's a
be
font.
filming.
That's a font with a line on
That's
it. It's,
different.
no, I mean, well, all right. So my equivalent of Aaron is probably my friend Georgia Ball, who we've worked on My Little Pony together. We did started off in Strawberry Shortcake. She wrote the Frozen comics for Joe Books. And we did another one on Strawberry Shortcake at IDW. And so basically, she writes the script. She's just very clear. Bang, 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 bang. There's the script. And she just kind of trusts me to just kind of run with it. So it's not really, there isn't really a lot of back and forth with Georgia. So I just trust, I think editors figure out, it's like, if I'm working with Amy, just shut up and just let her work. 'Cause, if they've got a good note, by all means tell me, but chances are I'm going to have a reason why something is the way it is. So yeah, I pencil everything fair. I try and be as clean as possible, especially if you're dealing with Disney. Hasbro kind of got used to me after a while, just rough. And go, yeah, she knows what she's doing. So I do try and pencil tightly because my big thing is character acting. I love getting my teeth into the character acting and the comedy and selling a joke or something like that. And when you're trying to convince executives of that, it's good to just nail that straight away, at least sell it straight out the gate. So then the rest is all just gravy. You just got to ink it and then color it. So the main thing I notice I do, most of my backgrounds I do completely digitally in the color stage. I will make like fake backgrounds I can copy paste if it's got a sky or a sea or a bunch of trees or something. And so I will do as little on the backgrounds as I can get away with because I'm not a background artist. So,
But you do all the backgrounds.
yeah, oh yeah. So I like to do all the art myself, usually because when I'm doing a colouring, I've got certain palettes in mind. Again, I have digital tricks that I use to fill in the background, so if I'm colouring it myself, then I don't have to draw backgrounds in. I can just say, this will be CG, and they trust me. So I work pretty fast, so I just churn it out and get it done, and just get it straight to the letterers so they can get their thing done. And because as these guys have been saying, when you're working with Disney, a lot of the time is spent waiting for approvals.
Oh
because
gosh.
yes.
So what is like?
It's
what
not just
would-
one editor. It's not just your editor. There's like there's a liaison editor at Disney who has to see it. In the case of say Darkwing Duck, because it's a duck comic, it's got to go to a bunch of other higher up
Duck experts.
duck experts. Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
Ducksperts.
yeah.
It's got to go over to the Duck Dynasty guys. They got to look at it. It's,
And with the Princess comics, they've got someone at the Princess branding side probably has to have a look at them as well.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, not quite so much. I mean, Frozen definitely was that was a tough one to do because it's an active movie. It's an active franchise with Walt Disney Pictures. So anything that is current with Disney, like say Frozen or Pirates of the Caribbean or even Muppets, they've got to go through Walt Disney Studios for approvals. But if it's an established franchise like Princesses, usually it's just somebody at Consumer Products just has to kind of look at it and go, yeah, all right. And then that's it, basically. So, yeah, mine's not quite as back and forth as with these guys, but...
Because you're just talking to yourself. Amy,
Yeah.
do you like this? Yes, I do, Amy.
yeah.
Is that your process?
Yeah, pretty much.
well, when I was
I have pretty much in mind, yeah.
draw the head over to this. No, I have a reason for that.
when
Plus, I'm
Amy's
usually
editor,
sneaking in background gags and stuff in
Yeah.
there, and I mean nobody's called me on those or anything.
when I was Amy's editor at Boom, she was like I had a couple
Is
of
that
people.
how you guys met?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I was her editor at Boom, and then later we discovered some pictures from a party at Comic-Con where we're sitting next to each other when we both worked for Tokyo Pop in different
didn't know each
capacities. We didn't know each other at all. And it was like, oh, this old photo. Oh my God, that's us sitting together. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, when
But
I was.
you lost your wallet in that picture,
I
right?
did, yeah.
Oh.
That's when you came into all that.
That's back when I used to make money at Comic-Con.
This is Aaron's wallet we're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, at Comic-Con, it would have had some money in it. So Amy was like just right away, she became one of like the most trusted people. As an editor, you want to have as many people that you don't have to keep an eye on as possible because you're dealing with so many books, and I was dealing with like 12 books at Boom at various levels of approval, all with Disney. So when you talk about that waiting period for getting things back and everything, there was always something, some stage of something that I was waiting on. So to have people like Amy or later James when he came on that I knew that I could hand an assignment to, and I didn't have to check in on them. It would come in, they would regularly give me the pages on time. Or if I could go to like, Amy, oh my gosh, I need a cover by tomorrow. Can you get me a cover? And Amy would draw and color an entire cover by like the next day that I could turn in. Because some project came up, and to make the deadline, we had to get it done on this date to get an approval. So James and Amy were always like super dependable in that fashion. You guys and Roger Langridge and Alan Gladfelter were like the four people that it was like if I had an emergency I could just go to.
So
and
is
get
that how
something
you
back
met James and Amy? Both.
No, I met them both at. I met James a little bit differently. One
we
day,
were both working on Muppets.
yeah, Amy was working on Muppets, and I had an artist working on a book, and for whatever reason we were really behind. I can't even remember why, but we were really behind schedule. And Amy called me and she said, "Hey, there's a guy that just posted in the forums. He posted some Muppet art. It's really good. You should go take a look at it." So I went and took a look. James had posted like a 2-page New Zealand story, and he said, "Oh, I'm really loving the Muppet comics," and it inspired me to draw this little 2-pager. So it's New Zealand and his boomerang fish. And it's a very funny 2-pager. And so I called him up and I was like, "Hey kid, you want to draw some Muppets?" And he was like, "Oh boy, I sure do, Mr. Sparrow." We had our little pork pie hats. And actually, go ahead and pick it up. You tell me your side of that, because it's like I called you and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have some Muppet work for you," but I didn't give it to you right away. Like I had to clear something. I had to get you approved.
Yeah, I wasn't in on the approval part, but
I turned in your 2-pager.
all I heard is, "Can you get me a complete issue of a Muppet comic in 2 weeks?"
And he did. He did. He drew 22 pages in 2 weeks. It was well drawn. The characters were in his style, but still on model. With Muppets, you were allowed a little bit of interpretation.
Back then, yes.
Yeah, you were allowed to have like a little bit of interpretation.
Anybody read the Muppet Show comics that Boom Studios did a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Roger
And
Langridge.
Marvel reprinted it too.
Yeah.
And so Amy's Muppet style is very much like it's like you're looking at the puppets. You can see how
I was a bit of a
the puppeteer has their
purist.
how the
They didn't
puppeteer has their
close
hand
their
in Kermit's
eyes,
face
they
the way
didn't-
that she draws
yeah.
him. And James is more of a cartoony style. So I turned in the pages and they're like, "Yeah, we love him." He gets me the issue in 2 weeks, and I looked at the pages and I was like, "Wow." Every joke that the writers put in, was Paul Benjamin and Patrick Stork. Every gag, James sold it. Like he just got it and sold it so well that he was only supposed to fill in for 1 issue so that I could get the other artists on track. And I called the other artist and I said, "Yeah, we're going to go in a different direction." And I hired James for the next 2 issues. And
I
then,
want it from that perspective.
and then James,
Sharpening my knife.
because James
Aaron
is so good.
Sparrow.
I know there's someone right now, someone putting on lipstick, going, my name on the people to kill list. It's like, I will.
Got you in a little pit there and puts the lotion in the basket.
So I scheduled James to write the next book, which was being written by Jesse Snyder, because I was like, I've got my Muppet artist, for the next arc, But then at that same time, they finally approved me doing a Darkwing 4-issue series. They only approved it for 4 issues. I'd spent a year trying to get it to go, and Disney was like, "Yes," and Boom was like, "We don't think that's going to be any good." So finally, I can't remember why, but they came around to the idea that all right, we'll give you 4 issues. It was probably just to shut me up. Because I went in and I said, look, how many issues do we have to sell for you to consider this a success? And my boss said 8,000 issues. And I said, okay, if we come in under 8,000, I will buy the rest. I will make up that. That's how much I believe in that this book will be a success. So it finally got greenlit for 4 issues. And I called James up and I said, hey, I'm trying to bank some covers, so give me like an Incredibles cover and give me these Muppet covers. Just for giggles, why don't you just give me a concept of like a Darkwing Duck cover? He's like, okay. And then,
Well, I said, who?
I was gonna say no.
just like boom.
No, and then so I threw in the Darkwing Duck cover, and then I finished up my last issue of the Muppet King Arthur story, and I said, okay, let's get started on Muppet Snow White. Detour here. We're gonna do a 4-issue run of Darkwing Duck, and I wanted to do the Muppets.
He was like, I was just hitting my stride with Muppets. And
I want to keep going.
I was
with
like, you
Muppets.
can go back to Muppets when we're done. And then we never did
waiting.
because the first issue,
Oh.
issue numbers on Darkwing came in and they far surpassed expectations, and so it got greenlit as a regular series. So it was like, oh, James, you got continued work until we get canceled or we're dead. And
What about Kermit?
so he drew. You know, it was sad too. In the Definitively Dangerous edition, we had a little newspaper blurb, and it said, there aren't really that many songs about rainbows, study finds. And James drew like a picture of a perplexed Kermit, and they were like, you can have the joke, but take Kermit out. And we were like, oh, is that would have been your
Deny you even.
to deny you even further. But yeah, so we ended up, James knocked out Darkwing, and it was a huge success, and that's why we're up here right now.
That's awesome.
And Amy drew a bunch of covers for that run too, that are collected in the back of the Definitively Dangerous edition.
I did a bit of everything. It's
Yeah.
like I was drawing a Monsters Inc. comic and Muppet Peter Pan at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And after that, I'm like, I am never drawing 2 comics the same month again. Fast forward several years, and I'm drawing Strawberry Shortcake and Ponies in the same month.
Oh my gosh, you're drawing my childhood. Is there going to be a Rainbow Bright comic?
I don't even know who has the Rainbow Bright license.
I don't know.
Funko. Is
I think
making that.
Hasbro has
Has
it.
everything.
Yeah.
I think Hasbro has it, and I think they've worked it into their whole Hasbro revolution. So G.I. Joe and Rainbow Bright
Yeah.
versus Transformers.
Yeah, for the record, Hasbro are awesome. We talk about how Disney have very strict rules with their branding and stuff. Hasbro will let you go nuts.
Oh, wow.
You pick up any of the My Little Pony comics, especially the ones Andy Price draws. He puts every Hollywood Easter egg.
Picture show reference in
He puts everything.
Yeah.
in
Oh,
there.
wow.
I put Sailor Scout ponies. I put every Doctor Who pony in there. I put him. I put everybody.
Yeah, I'm in there as a bald pony that looks.
Oh! Hasbro don't care. They're like, cool. As long as
That
the
was
main
one of-
six-string character, that's all we care about.
I
That
just
was one
remember
of the
buying
greatest-
first issue, Andy drew a reference to Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, yeah.
In the 1970s, filmed with the pony just screaming from the last scene of the movie. It was,
Oh, yeah.
I was
With a
just
hook?
like,
And yeah,
this is a
totally.
kids comic, right?
Andy's shameless. He's terrible. I at least can't keep mine subtle. But yeah, he's. Well, mind you, for one story, I think it was all these like fictional villain ponies that like burst out of these books and running amok in Equestria and whatever it is, Ponyville. And of course it's like, and they're all referencing in some way licensed characters. There was like a Loki pony, a Voldemort pony. One was the Wicked Queen. There was a Daenerys, who's not a villain, of course, but even then I'm like, oh,
Depends on your
I can't-
perspective.
So
If
they
you're a
weren't the
Lannister.
exact colours of the characters, but I'm just like, no, I can't make it too obvious because then we're going to get Disney breathing down our necks and stuff.
Oh.
Good. So we had to be subtle about it. But
We got to do a great. There's a lot of horror references in the last 2 issues of Darkwing that we did. Which I think you've got the trade right there with the Mike Mignola style cover.
Yes.
It was our horror story for Halloween, and ended up kind of turning into like a really kind of like sweet bushroot story. But we got to do like an Army of Darkness. There's a lot of Dawn of the Dead references. There's Walking Dead references.
we opened with a Walking Dead reference.
Yeah, and Gosling's running around with the hair in her face and Darkwing's hat on, so she looks like Carl. And Launchpad's dressed like Daryl. He's got a crossbow. But then my favorite was there's just a bit in the next issue where Gizmo Duck has shown up. and it's basically the poster from Army of Darkness. So it's Gizmo Duck standing there, and one of his hands is a potato peeler because they're fighting and there's like a girl clinging to him, which got us our only complaint on Amazon. Someone said that we had immodest women in our book. But there's like a girl clinging to him, and it says, like surrounded by evil, low on gas, like the poster for Army of Darkness. And then Gizmo Duck is responding to the narrator, going, "The suit doesn't actually run on gas. It actually is a combination of." And then Dwayne's like, "Who's telling this story?" And he gets into it. So Gizmo Duck gets a nice little argument with the narrator. But it's a whole like Army of Darkness riff, and it was like, yes, we got that in. Little Bruce Campbell in my book.
I know the most fun we had though doing was our Crisis on Infinite Darkwings art.
Yeah.
If anyone read that, and it's where we literally when I got the script, the story included.
We had like 7, I think.
Yeah,
in
there was
the
like
script.
7 or 8 that were in the script, and then I thought, well, if this is called Infinite Darkwings, let's make Infinite Darkwings. So we started just throwing in background characters of Transformers Darkwing, Bowling
Doctor
Darkwing
Who.
was
There's
there.
a Rorschach Darkwing.
We had New Kids on the Block Darkwing. We had
No, it was the Jonas Brothers, because you were like Disney.
that's right, yeah.
The Jonas Brother Darkwing.
Jonas Brothers. We had,
That aged well.
Well, there's a Lady Gaga in there. There's like a Lady Gaga Darkwing.
Popeye. We had an Adam Ant Darkwing. We had.
There's Roger Rabbit Darkwing with the singing sword.
Yeah.
And it's just the idea that because the first arc was there hasn't been a Darkwing in the city for a year. He hasn't been going out and adventuring. He's stuck in this cubicle position because this big corporation has moved in and taken over everything, including all the crime fighting. So it's just he's kind of lost and doesn't know where his place is. He and Launchpad have had this falling out. Goslin's going to this expensive school for spirited youngsters. So it's like he's just spending all his time being a dad, and he's kind of going a little bit stir crazy. And so that was the first arc, was him returning to being Darkwing. And so with the second arc, it was originally going to be the Steelbeak story, and then we thought of, well, since we're getting the green light to do this, why don't we just flip what we just did, and instead of a city with no Darkwing, now we'll do a city with too many Darkwings. And so Negaduck's collecting all the Darkwings from the multiverse, and he's got magic on his side, and she's hypnotizing them, and he's sending them out to do his bidding. And basically, it's like, I'm going to just completely discredit you. The city's going to be overrun with Darkwings doing my bidding, and then I'm going to blow up the city, and I'm going to finally get rid of all of you, because there should only be one in this entire universe, and that's me. That's Negaduck's whole motivation. So James just got to go. We had 7 in the first draft of the script we sent James, and then James was like, do I have to just stick to the 7, or can I do whatever, And we're like, no, go nuts, and he made more work for himself.
It sounds like you are a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
And you like it.
Yeah.
The thing is, everybody that gets to work on these things, we all have such a passion for Disney and for the things that for us it's all the things that you created. We're just absolutely so in love with this stuff that we put extra work on ourselves. In the book, all the little entries in the Joe books, all the little file cards in the back, like the Handbook of the Marvel Universe type profiles of all the villains. James and I did all that for free. I wrote all those without charging. James drew all the art without charging, because
Didn't I color them in a hotel room?
Yeah, we were at MomoCon. We were at MomoCon, and James drew Steelbeak. And
it's all done on the iPad Pro.
And Tad was there, and Tad comes in and goes,
I was coloring it.
Disney's never going to let you get away with that picture of Steelbeak with a straight razor. Because Steelbeak's standing there with this wicked-looking razor, and so we changed it to a gun. But, yeah. But it had to be, it's a laser gun. So, that's fine. But but we're coloring it in the hotel to send it off. Extra work, just because we love it.
So when did Tad come in? When you decided to do Darkwing?
That's a fun story.
Did you already know each other, or how did?
No. I knew who he was, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
No, you didn't know who he was. I mean, you've been stalking him.
I was just gonna say, were you stalking him?
I had all the that Webby board.
Yes.
Frank based that off of my Tad Stone board. It means something. No, we'd started to put together the stuff for the Darkwing comic series, and so on the server I had a little Darkwing Duck folder, and David Peterson, who does the comic book Mouse Guard, he was doing Muppet covers for me, and so he would go into the server and he would drop the Muppet covers in the folder, and he calls me and he goes, so I couldn't help but notice there's a Darkwing Duck folder on the server. And I said, yeah. And he goes, you guys are doing a Darkwing Duck book? And I said, yeah, we are, but you got to keep it quiet because we haven't announced it yet. And he goes, oh, no problem. He goes, but I know Tad Stones. And he goes, and I can put you in contact with him if you want to, you want to pick his brain, because I think he'd really be interested. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I go to my bosses and I'm like, hey, David Peterson gave me Tad Stone's information. Let me contact him. And set, he lives right here in Burbank. Let's set something up. And they were like, no. And I was like, why? And they're like, what if he turns out to be like a miserable old crank? And then
and yet we worked through it.
Yeah, we worked through it. Because they were afraid that he would hear about it and then go online and be like, this is terrible. I can't believe that. They were really worried about that. So they're like, you can contact him, but we have to announce it first. Because we don't want anyone else getting out in front of it. And I was like, okay, all right, and then so we announced it, and then I reached out and was like, well, let's get together for dinner and.
Free dinners.
Yeah, we went. That's how we roped Tad in. We'll buy you dinner. Tad's all free meal. Woohoo! Yeah. But I knew that we had something special because the first night that we sat down, and we kind of pitched to Tad what we wanted to do, and Tad gave us all these great notes. It was like, oh, that. But he was like, not like, no, this is wrong, but like enthusiastic and like, oh, you could do this or you could do this or there's 5 different ways that you could do this, and we were just like blown away. That he, just came and he gave us all these other avenues that we could pursue. And so it just became a really fun relationship. And then when the book got greenlit for more, it's like we went back to him with more storylines. And, he was like, move this here and maybe do that. And, so all kinds of suggestions that made it a really fun, he didn't turn out to be a miserable crank after all.
That came much later.
Later on, in the boom run, after Aaron left and other editors took over, I'd still have free dinners with the new people, but it was always, they were just kind of letting me in on what they're doing. And I said, because they came up with the idea of doing an election, and I said, yeah, because every kid just loves the idea of elections, and it's so exciting, and voting, and all of that. And basically he was saying, why would you? And they were already far down the thing. They weren't going to change it. Gosh. But it was just like, guys, you have to, at the start, go for something interesting. It's not just because you're dealing with an election in real life. It's like, look for something funny. And the last thing, probably the last meeting I had with them, they had come up with a reason for Morgana to leave. And she said, I come here and it's just dangerous. We run into villains and all of that. And they came up with this convoluted way of writing her out of the series to bring her back, I assume, somewhere down the line. And I said, she comes from a world of vampires and zombies and monsters, and half of those are in her family. It's like, it's one of those things where, yeah, they knew the show, but they didn't think things through. And you take a character and just put them in a stock thing instead of saying, wait, what is that character? Let's make more out of it, which is what these guys, I think, did. And certainly the new DuckTales guys, as they reinvent things, they say, what's the essence of the character now? We'll keep that, but how do we give it a new twist? And to me, that's much better than ignoring something and just turning a character into a bland sort of character.
Well, it comes down to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, say what you were going to say, because I was going to go on to something else.
Well, I think it just comes down
to something interesting, probably.
Yeah, okay.
You go ahead.
No, I'll go ahead. Let me bore everybody, and then we'll get back to you. Because you got to have a lull, and then you can come back, and then it'll make what you say even contrast, more. I think that's the difference between making good comics and making bad comics when it comes to licensed material is, you can't go into anything like, essentially, if you work for Marvel, you're doing licensed comics. Like what we do kind of doesn't get as much fanfare because that's licensed, but it's not as, but somebody else owns the characters. If you work for Marvel, you're doing the same thing. But you can't go in and say, how can I write my stories using the Fantastic Four? Mm-hmm. You have to go in and you have to say, what kind of Fantastic Four stories can I write? And what's interesting about these characters and where can I take them? Anytime that you go in and you try and mold characters to what you want to do, it's never going to come out as good as if you just lean into them. And that's one of the things that we really learned from Chad in those initial meetings, is as good as I think our initial pitch was, he came in and he just added the seasonings that made it that much better. And I think that's the way that you have to approach it. You have to say, how can I use these characters to tell a story that's meaningful for them, not, how do I get across how do I write my manifesto using, Mickey Mouse?
Devious. Which is kind of funny because I feel like the X-Men 92 people who were here for the 25th anniversary, they kind of took those characters because Eric and Juliet knew nothing about X-Men, and they got paired up with people who knew everything about X-Men. So that's how the X-Men 92 became, is they had like real life people stories and they were using the X-Men to tell them. So it's kind of
And for people who don't know, Eric Lewald, Julia Lewald were writers on Chippendale's Rescue Rangers.
Chippendale!
That was your last meeting at Boom. That was your last meeting at Boom when you told them that Gadget couldn't cure cancer. I remember that. I remember you telling me that story. You said Nimnal had this machine to cure his, like they were trying to like write this really like kind of like heavy story, and he was, his granddaughter was dying, and he built this machine, but it wasn't working, and then Gadget came in and fixed it, and you said that you told them that's not what Gadget does. Gadget builds
like
little
springs and rubber bands.
Like
Actually, frankly, if they, and I'm sure Frank would be up to it, but to bring back the Rescue Rangers today, to me, Gadget's a real problem, because now, I mean, Amy's wearing a watch on her wrist that can do more things than anything Gadget could possibly need. We had like an old TV tube in their headquarters, but now everything's miniaturized. It's hard to get that. I think it would be hard to get that sense of fun, and that was a big part of Rescue Rangers. That was, to build that miniature world using bits and pieces of the human world.
Yeah. Have you been in like? I don't know if you could talk about it, but like, have you been to Disney to talk about bringing Darkwing Duck back, like as his own thing, or like anything? Or any of you guys talking to Disney? That you can talk about?
We've all visited the guys. Basically, they're doing their own universe, so we know stuff about what they're doing that we can't talk about. But I've always been, perched to the frustration of many fans, if it comes to, I want to do a new show that's just like the old show, why would you do that? What's the point? Why would any company do that? Just remaster the old, or trace the artwork or something like that. The whole point, like a new Sherlock Holmes show, you don't copy Benedict or Basil Rathbone, for that matter, Robert Downey Jr. You go to the source material, you create something new. And I've always leaned that way. I told these guys early on, I said, don't make this comic dependent, and I don't think they did it 100%. I think they stayed too close to the show in that you shouldn't make your comic dependent on a show that was out 25 years ago.
Oh, we were going to ruin everybody's childhood by issue 12.
You're taking this huge potential audience and saying, let's ignore this part of the audience and just go with the people who saw the show, who go to comic book shops, who are open to, you're going from this to something like that. I'm way more about, make for today, and I encouraged them, which they started doing, is like, create your own villains, create your own world in this. And again, so yes, we've all visited Disney X amount of times, but as I tell people, in fact, I had lunch with somebody who said, well, have they made an offer to bring me back to help out on DuckTales? And I said, I wrote the one last century. They have people writing for today. There's no point to it, nor do I want them to. I mean, it's just like, I'm retired now. I enjoy it. If they want to come up with a job for me to consult, that they pay me a lot of money, that I can come in every once in a while. I'm all for those jobs. Hell, I did it for free dinners on these.
They don't have to pay a lot of money. They'll do it for food.
Is the Elephant Bar still there?
Yeah, no, I think we were.
No, it's gone.
No, that's true. Yeah.
It's the Wood Wrench.
Oh, but Wood Ranch has great ribs.
I know the Wood Ranch.
I'm familiar with the works of Wood Ranch.
But they kept the elephant head, right?
Yeah,
But I'll open it up to audience questions. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I have one for Amy.
Yep.
In terms of, I guess, pocket princesses, which one is your favorite one to write for?
I love them all. I wouldn't say I have a favorite. Some are easier to write than others.
Like, for example?
Some characters lend themselves better to being kind of the straight man, like say Pocahontas. It's also because she's Native American and she's got there are some things I don't want to try and project onto her because I want to be respectful of the culture and all that kind of stuff. So if I've done a Native American like reference or something, there's always somebody who pops up and goes, "Oh, you just missed the mark there. She should have done this." I'm like, and that annoys me like crazy. But the most fun ones to write, Ariel's always fun. Who else? Rapunzel, just the bouncy giddy teenagers like Ariel, Anna, Rapunzel. They're fairly easy to write because they're just all goofballs. Elsa's my girl. I love Elsa. Elsa's my favorite. I love her because she's there's a lot of gaps to still be filled with Elsa. The movie wasn't really Elsa's story, it was Anna's story. So I'm hoping with Frozen 2 they're going to start filling her character in a little bit more and she's not just going to be, "Oh, I have issues and I have issues and abandonment issues and all this kind of stuff." I'm like, "Girl, you're a queen. Come on, step up and govern." So I like kind of just playing with her because she is kind of a big blank slate.
What are your favorite combinations? Because really it's about together.
Interacting.
Yeah.
I really don't have any favorites. I do keep a very careful log of how many times each one appears.
Really?
So I make sure they all actually do it or get equal time in the comics. Although, again, because some are easier to write, like the teenagers, it's easier. Like, I've got Rapunzel's been in it enough. I need to think of something else with Aurora. But what's interesting is that I have a lot of fun writing Aurora in Pocket Princesses, but in the actual official comics, she's very, very hard to write because she only got 17 minutes of screen time. And all she is just kind of pretty and sweet. There's not a lot to hang on canon Aurora, but so in Pocket Princesses I can, so in Pocket Princesses I can kind of flesh her out a bit. I'm like, okay, so in my world she's a horticulturalist. She loves playing with plants and things like that. So and she's kind of like the slightly cynical Greek chorus. But like I turned Jasmine into kind of like a little Kardashian. It's she is. Come on, she's a poor little rich girl.
I like that you put Princess Leia in there. She's in there a lot now.
Yeah, she's just doing the permanent cast. Yeah, it was time.
Yeah, but is that fun? Like, because infuse like
Amy
Carrie
has
Fisher?
strict rules about what's a princess and what isn't until she decides that or not.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
She even had Alice appear once.
Alice was in it once. I figure Alice lives next door.
She brought over the brownies.
She's a crazy neighbour.
Oh yeah.
Don't eat the brownies. You don't know what's in them.
Yes.
I'm kind of a Darkwing Duck, DuckTales purist. I love the cartoon from way back. I watched the new series of DuckTales, and I wanted to ask you because you guys were the original animators of the original series of Darkwing. And did you also work on this?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your feeling about the comparisons of today, how they've changed it as compared to what it was then? And there's one other series that's been done on Netflix, Voltron, which I thought was done very, very close to the original also, but they kind of modernized it a little bit. How do you feel about the changes that they've made to it? Because I'm going to be completely honest, I wasn't particularly crazy about the new DuckTales series on Netflix. I thought it kind of took it away from the people that remembered what like Rescue Rangers and those cartoons were like back then. So I'm curious.
I think the modern DuckTales is a much, much, much better show than the original. It is smarter writing. They chose to do traditional animation, and it only suffers in that around the world. There's not as many traditional animators anymore, so they're constantly fighting quality there. So they actually have animators in the studio to correct things or do key things. But they're closer to Carl Barks. I mean, now this is to my taste, and you grew up with the show, and I was behind the scenes. I just feel I'm amazed at what they're creating. Now, part of it is I know what they have planned and how things you see in this season are going to pay off in season 3 and stuff like that. And they were hurt a little bit by them being shown out of the order of the way they wrote it. And that only hurt in that they were introducing characters like this, and then they got switched around for different reasons. And it's like people said, oh, well, nobody knows who Huey is. I don't like him at all. I like Dewey. Well, yeah, because they shoved these Dewey episodes together, and Huey isn't going to show up till here. But overall, I just think it's, since I was never the 8-year-old, watching that show the first time around, I was already an adult. I see it as that's a sense of design. Here's the level of animation we got. Here's the gags that worked or didn't work. It's the modern one. I'm 100% for, and I trust them with anything. So.
I mean, these guys got to see like a little bit more of the new DuckTales footage before its premiere date, and so I, like most of you guys, went into the first episode watching it blind, not really knowing much about it. I mean, and I loved it straight out the gate. I mean, it's smart, it's clever, it's nice. The boys have actual individual personalities, and we have Webby and Mrs. Beakley, who are very different from the original DuckTales ones in, honestly, the best possible way. Webby's awesome. She's got a harpoon gun.
Yeah, Webby
But I
was always
mean, realize that they weren't trying to do apples and apples,
No,
oranges and
it's
oranges.
not trying
They
to do
went
the same
back to the
cartoon
source
at all.
material,
Yeah.
which is not DuckTales. Source material includes Carl Barks, Don Rosa, Donald Duck shorts, Donald Duck comic strips. There's a character that's going to be huge that was only mentioned in a single comic. I don't even think there was a visual representation of the character. That character is going to be huge in coming seasons. So they know their ducks, and it's not about that one show. They're going back, and plus, as I don't know if you were here at the beginning, there are influences of the Disney afternoon that will come in and play within that world too. So it is, again, as I said, the Sherlock Holmes reference. You don't redo the previous one. You do your own. So to my taste, I love the new show.
I love world building, and probably the best way to think of this show, if you still haven't kind of wrapped your head around it or accepted it, try and think of this show to the Disney afternoon what the first Iron Man movie became to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you kind of view it that way, you'll start to pick up on a lot of the things that they're starting to drop in.
Yeah, having heard a bit about what Frank and the guys have planned, it's like this is literally going to be the MCU for Disney.
Oh, wow.
There is a lot.
Wait a minute, that doesn't mean
No,
there's going to be
literally,
8 new series all based on this.
No, but I'm saying, much like the
all
MCU
these-
tied together all these iconic Marvel characters into one cinematic world, Frank is very much wants to incorporate all these Disney afternoon elements as well as build on the original Duck world.
He said it in one of the initial tweets that he put out, where he said to everybody asking me, "Is this thing that I love going to be in the new DuckTales show?" The answer is yes. So if you love
Well, the second part of
European
the answer
comics-
is yes, because we love him too.
Yeah. And so if if you're a fan of the European comics, and characters like Feathery and things like that. Now I don't know if Feathery's going to show up. I haven't seen anything with that, but I would say that Feathery's probably going to show up, just knowing the guys. Don't quote me on that because I don't know, but just knowing kind of the passion that they have for all these different areas of the Duck universe and all the different influences. I'd be shocked if he didn't show up in some capacity.
Except for Quack Pack.
Except for Quack Pack.
I know going back to the question, I didn't watch, I was in college when DuckTales came out, the original, and I looked at it with more of an adult sensibility. I was never a kid watching these things, and I imagine a kid's going to have a different reaction to the original DuckTales than, but now I look at both series as an adult, and no disrespect to what they did back in the 80s, but I love this new show. It's just, it's the best half hour of television, period. I mean, let alone animation.
It was so funny the first time James and I got to go up and see what they were doing. It was before the show had debuted, and Tad had already been up, and I think you mentioned us to Frank, and Frank was like, "Oh, I've got the comics right here." Yeah. And so Frank invited James and I, and we went up and he showed us the first couple of episodes, and we laughed all the way through. We were having a great time, and so he turns the lights back on, and after he shows us these, and then he goes, we're like, "Oh, it's so great, blah blah blah, I love it." And he goes, "But let me ask you this: is it DuckTales? And I went, and James and I like looked at each other like, why is he asking this? Like, you've been working on this, of course it's Duck. And what I realized is he was having the same like moment of, I've been working on this in this bubble for so long, and I feel like we've got something special, but now I'm at the point where it's about to launch, and I'm having that fear. And it reminded me of the fear before the first, and we'd already done Darkwing books at the time that the new series from Joe Books was coming out, and right before the first issue came out, I was sending it to friends and going like, "Is it funny? I don't know anymore. Like, is it good? I can't tell." And it was like, so when I saw like Frank kind of having that same moment of like, I just need some feedback to tell me if we're on the right track because I'm in the bubble. I recognized that and was like, no, they're doing great. Like, I love everything that they're doing with it.
Plus, I think the internet makes it kind of scary, especially to be creative and put just stuff out there in general, because people can screenshot it and do stuff to it, or like just criticize the hell out of you. And
I'm fine with criticism. Like, not that I've ever gotten any, because everything James and I do is wonderful. But except for the one lady who was like, they put immodest women. And I was like, Goslin? I don't know. Like, nobody's wearing pants. I lost my train of thought.
Next question?
Next question.
Yes.
I had a question. Who do you consider to be the most fun Darkwing villain to write for?
She looked at you.
Amy, who's your
Who's
favorite?
my
Darkwing?
favorite Darkwing villain to write? Oh, boy.
I have to have you write something with one of the villains. For me, and I don't know, Tal might have a different answer, but Negaduck's always a lot of fun because he's just pure evil and pure over-the-top evil. But the truth is, and I kind of discovered this with the final story that we did for Joe Books, which was Bushroot, who I had never written a singular Bushroot story. Everything that I'd ever written with him, he was always with the Fearsome Five. Or the Fearsome Four, when Negaduck was separate from that. And I never realized just how great, I mean, I knew it on some level, but like actually getting in and writing him, he really changed the last story. So the short answer, and I don't know if it's a satisfying answer, but it kind of depends on which villain I'm writing that month. You know, they're all such quirky, interesting villains in their own way. You know, from Megavolt running out and, you know, he's stolen a bunch of lightning bolts and he's like, "Be free!" and he throws them and they all break in the street. You know, they're just like kind of like that quirky weirdness that each character has. And then Bushroot has like a real sweet part of his personality. Quackerjack is just, especially the way we did him, we took him a little bit darker, which I think was your original intention, that he was going to be a more Joker type villain, a little bit scarier.
Yeah, I think you guys took him scarier than I would have, but yeah, it was. Again, when
you hadn't seen the next arc.
when you're in production back then, certainly, things have to get done, and it's like, oh, I want to make this better. Well, as long as you're making it better by Friday, that's good, because next week is another script that has to go out, and that goes for casting too. Sometimes on different characters, it's like, oh, that's not how I heard the voice to be. But unless there was something about that voice that I said, we are not getting what's on the page. If it was just a different interpretation, that's who we went with, because that was money. You'd have to recast and record and re-record. And I didn't do those things lightly. You always have to constantly watch the budget and things like that. So you went with what's on the page. I did a script based on Twin Peaks called Twin Beaks, and I showed it to the one story editor who had never watched Twin Peaks at the time. He just wasn't tuned in, and he loved that script. He said it had such a weird feeling to it and all that, and we got really excited. It's like, yeah, we should find other shows to pattern the episode after, which we never did, because you have to go with the stories in front of you. And if somebody figured that out and pitched it, that would be great. But instead, they had these other things that were pitched. And as long as those were good story seeds, you know, we go. So that's just the nature of how things get generated and how you have to go for. And favorite characters, you know, are changed. Like I say, Quackerjack went in a different direction. I loved Megavolt as written by Doug Langdale, specifically loved Bushroot, because they had more to the personalities, where Liquidator is popular more from the comics, I think, because of his one-liners, but his personality is basically salesman, one-liners, liquid guy. It's like, whereas Bushroot had pathos to him and a backstory, and it's just like, just leave me alone. I'm just trying to do my thing. And
Trying
it's
to
like
make a
you can
plant
get
bride.
you can get you can get way more stories out of those things. So.
Yeah, so I guess the short answer that we've made long is that for me it's just who I'm working with at that time, because when I dig into the character, you really find something fun about them. Like, I love writing Liquidator because and we actually had like a whole thing that hopefully maybe we'll eventually get to do that was there was only one Liquidator solo show, and then the rest of the time he was with the Fearsome Five, and so we wanted to dig into him a little bit more, and we had like an idea for that, so hopefully we'll get to do it. But just speaking of Darker Quackerjack, you and I did the Kamikaze panel at which you can find online. It was from the Stan Lee's Kamikaze, and we did a Darkwing panel, and Michael Bell was on the panel. Yeah, were you there? You were there.
I'm
That's
the
right.
one who got the autographed book from you guys.
Yes, that's right. Okay, I thought you looked familiar. Plus, you seem to be dressed like someone I know.
It's pure style.
Yeah. So. Michael actually read from the Definitively Dangerous edition where Darkwing or where Quackerjack first starts to take that dark turn. And the way he did it, I was like, oh, he totally could have done that on the show. Like, he totally could have been creepy on the show. Yeah. He brought just Quackerjack's voice down, and he did it in like a different, it's still very much the same, but just tweaked it just enough. Right off the bat, he had never seen that page before it got put in front of him. And that's how good these guys are. And that's what we try and do when I write these villains, is I try and get into how would the voice actor do this? Because when you read what we've written, and when you're looking at what's on the page, I want you to hear the voice actors. I want you to be able to like imagine how this would be animated, and so that's that's the fence that we're always swinging for.
Question?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to ask this. So, what is, for the three of you guys, what do you think is going to be the future for the Darkwing Duck comics?
We can't say anything about
There's not
and you'll get in trouble if you go ahead and try to hint at it like
Yeah,
I
you
don't have
do. So
an
maybe.
EMP generator on this.
I plead.
Let's leave it. He's
Yeah.
doing it right now.
he's doing it now.
I gotta give him something.
I know though.
I don't know anything. No, I'll say this: we're always interested in continuing the series.
Okay, well then, how should I feel? Should I feel happy? Should I feel down?
I mean, I guess you could call James and I on a day-to-day basis and just find out how we feel. Like, we'll just tell you our mood. Like, we feel positive, or, well, we feel kind of down. We feel kind of mad. We feel kind of hungry. Obviously we have a lot more stories we want to tell. There's always the possibility that some publisher could pick it up. We're always willing to return to it. So that's about as far as I can go at this point.
It sounds positive.
Positively terrified.
Did you have another question?
Yes, this will be my last one because I have too many.
No, we're here. I mean,
I know.
I'm sure it's for Amy.
I know, but
Yeah.
there's
Or
so many
James.
people here. But I just want to ask one big question for me. Ian Brill, the guy who was credited on the original comic books as the writer. What happened there?
Next question.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of don't want to go into it.
Okay.
It was a weird. Just my entire time at Boom was a weird working relationship. It was just a strange situation all around, and the way that everything went about was not ideal. I think that
When you get to the
Is this
Yeah.
for Jerry Springer? A Jerry Springer episode?
This is called Be Professional.
yeah, I was like, I'm
This is called
trying.
what we would like to keep working.
Yeah, I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying not to insult anybody.
It's okay. It's a really small town, and you run into people. People have disagreements, and yeah, I mean that's just like work. There's people.
He contributed to the series. There's a lot of things that he did that I thought were a lot of fun, and I wish him well. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, fair enough.
That sounds positive. Yeah. You have another question?
Yeah, I have one about Pocket Princesses.
Yep.
I haven't checked lately, but would you be seeing anything from Shuri from Black Panther? Because she's the princess.
Oh yeah, I saw you.
The most requested.
I saw you say something on your Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that too. She mentioned something about that on Twitter.
That you've had so many requests, but she's not
every
official,
time. No, I mean
right?
because Disney now just keeps acquiring, big subsidiaries and things like that. It's
Yes.
like as soon as it happens, people just comb it and they sort of go, "She's a princess. Is she coming to Pocket Princess?" I'm like, "No."
Princess when?
Like,
Amy, it says here Disney just bought Hasbro. When can I expect to see RC from the Transformers in Pocket Princess?
Like I say, Amy
there's
has strict rules
Yes.
until she changes them.
my hardline rule with Pocket Princess is always feature animated heroines only, and they are the 11.
Okay.
They are the 11 princesses in the official Disney Princess franchise, plus Anna, Elsa, and Moana. TV characters, no. So sorry, no Sophia, no Elena.
And maybe if you're in a
But
far-reaching Star Wars universe.
Leia cameoed in Pocket Princess probably about 4 times over the last years, and because that was long before Force Awakens came along and all that kind of stuff. And then when Leia came to the forefront again, and we all got to know Carrie Fisher again, and it's like it was time. And then Carrie Fisher died like last year, and I'm like, she was such a formidable woman, and Princess Leia is such a beloved, iconic character. She's been around. Every time I put Leia in a Pocket Princesses, the hits go whoop. Everybody loves. Yeah, we have the guy with the camera. He's had his
Right
hand.
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Standing up.
Yeah.
He had a question.
The man with the top.
You had your hand up a few
Forget your
times.
question.
It was a simple question. I was going to ask you, what was one of your first memorable projects for Walt Disney Studios Animation that pushed you along on your journey that led to Darkwing Duck?
Give
Well,
it a shot, Dad.
Well, I mean, it was an assignment. I took over the 3rd season of Gummy Bears. And on that season, I really liked the 22 minutes that I kind of pushed the mythology stuff and longer stories, and trees that came alive and things like that. And that I really loved just playing that storytelling. And then Rescue Rangers I helped on DuckTales. Rescue Rangers was after that. That was basically such a tight production. It was stream of consciousness for the most part. And Darkwing was, my intention was to make sure more of the gags survived from concept to screen. And we actually beat my expectations. Didn't get them all, but so if that answers it, that's that.
No, we can't talk about future Darkwing comics, but is there anything else that you guys can tell them that you're working on in the future that we can look out for?
I can tell you stuff that we'd like to work on. Whether or not anybody will let us is another question. Right now, James and I are putting together our first creator-owned project. It will be a comedy. So it's going to be a humor book, and we'll probably Kickstart or Indiegogo it when we're ready. But we've just started putting that together. As far as like dream projects, like we'd love to do like a Justice League Unlimited comic. James drawn in that style, which he's so. I don't know if you guys have ever. I don't know if you guys follow his stuff online. If you don't, you should. He does all these little headshots and things like that, and his like the Bruce Timm Paul Dini universe, which should have been the template for the films in my opinion, because they were just done perfect and right. But James draws in that style flawlessly, and I would love to do that. Then we've got like goofier things that we'd like to do, like
Dogtails.
Yeah. Yeah, and anything, any Disney stuff that we could get. James did a great pitch for a Stitch comic book that I still hold out hope might get greenlit someday.
I'm hoping I did a year's worth of. It wasn't just Stitch. It was a Lilo and Stitch comic. It was a continuation of the first movie. I've never seen the TV show or any of the sequels or anything like that.
You never saw Stitch Has a Glitch?
Stitch Has a Glitch wasn't bad.
Well,
Yeah.
but I went into it just taking every. A matter of fact, my first story that I had picks up right where the movie left off, so it just continues from the movie, and I hope one day to get to do it. They have my pitch, so. But if anybody doesn't have any plans tonight, I have a more immediate project coming up at Gallery Nucleus. Coming up tonight, there's the tribute to Disney TV animation show, which opens, and I have 3 pieces in that tonight. So
And there's some
If you guys just haven't had enough of us yet, feel free to come to Gallery Nucleus. We'll be walking around, hanging out, and happy to talk to people.
Yeah.
Chad's got at least 12 more hours of stories.
Very good.
What do you have coming up? Do you have the ongoing Pocket Princesses?
Well, Pocket Princesses is just the fan comic. I mean,
Right.
fun. Yeah, I don't do the Disney Princess comic books anymore. Most of my day job is spent designing toys for Hasbro. Lots of princess toys, occasionally some ponies. I
As they turn into
When
robots.
are you going to be doing G.I. Joe? That's what I'm waiting.
I just designed my first Star Wars toys later last month.
Nice.
But mostly storybook stuff with Disney Publishing, and I'll be doing some writing on future unnamed feature anime. It's writing spin-off stuff associated with a future feature animated movie, which I can't talk about yet. Just busy with lots of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Nice. And do you have anything coming up?
Not really. I mean, I'm at very few conventions this year. I had a show idea, basically what would be a Disney afternoon type show, science fiction based. I always thought, like, when I retire, I'll do comic stuff. And it's like after a month, my wife said, you can't spend 8 to 10 hours a day in that room. What Amy affectionately calls my artist nook. It doesn't qualify to be a studio, that's how small it is. But the desk fits in. Anyway, I realized I didn't give up a well-paying career in animation for a non-paying career in comics. But I still had all those stories I wanted to tell. I went through several things. I basically ripped out what would have been the first issue, and then I thought maybe this should be a combination of prose and not a graphic novel, but basically heavily illustrated where the prose feeds right into the comic, back into the prose. So like, it doesn't illustrate what you've just read. It is like a line of dialogue is answered in comic panels, and then it goes back into it, which allows me to get through it a lot faster. So I finished the first chunk of that and sent it out to an artist writer, just for his opinion, to find out, does this work, or do you automatically skip the illustrations, or just that kind of thing. And hopefully it does, and I would just put it out as like a Kindle book. It's just to get the stories out and to print out something that I can have at conventions, so I'm not just creating original art of 30-year-old characters. So, although I would continue to do that too. So.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.